Hey guys, thanks for coming back to my channel. Another install video this week. So if you saw my last video, you saw that I got a new intake manifold, carburetor, and I'm gonna need to install those on the Jeep. So here's the intake manifold area on the Jeep. So this orange part's the intake manifold I currently have. So what I need to do is I basically need to remove anything that's attached to it. So that means I need to drain some of my radiator fluid. I don't need to drain all of it, probably just like a gallon, maybe 2, and that'll make it so the water level just drops below the intake manifold. And then once I've done that, I'm going to remove the carburetor, and then anything that's in the way, I'm going to remove that as well. So that's what I got to get going. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drain some of the radiator. You should have a plug somewhere on your radiator. Mine's right here, and so it's just a twist plug. I'll put something underneath it to catch the fluid as it comes out. I intend to reuse my radiator fluid. I swapped it all out not too long ago, so I want to make sure I reuse it. You should have one either on the bottom left or bottom right of your radiator. If you don't, it's very possible that you'll just have to remove one of the hoses. You should have a return line hose on the bottom of your radiator, and you'll just have to remove one of those. It's a little more messy when you don't have the drain plug, but it's still doable, so just remember that. Alright, I'll see you on the other side as I start draining it. Okay, so from this angle you can kind of see that I've got a funnel coming down. I've got a large jug to catch the fluid as it comes out. Since I intend to reuse it, I cleaned the jug beforehand. And what you'll see from the top is I'm basically going to go start undoing the plug, and then I'll hold the funnel from the top, so you'll be able to see that. I've got the funnel right below the valve, and I'm gonna just open it with one hand and then hold the funnel in place with the other hand. So the goal of this is to not lose any fluid and also not make a mess. So let's give this a go. Alright, so I'm gonna let this drain for a little bit. I don't want to pull it out all the way because I want to be able to close it really easily. And then I don't want it to come out too fast either because I don't want it to knock the funnel out of place or knock my my jug over. So I will see you after this is done draining. Alright, now that I've got the radiator drained, I've got to start removing things off of the intake manifold itself. So I'm going to just go ahead and start from the top and just kind of work my way around. So first thing, I'm going to just take off the air filter for the carburetor. So that's the carburetor I currently have. So if anyone was wondering why I wanted to swap out my carburetor, that's the reason why. So this is a pretty dinky carburetor, but you can see there's still a whole bunch of stuff kind of coming in here. I've got a fuel line coming into the carburetor. I've got a vacuum line, the advance coming off of the distributor. Up here I've got my water outlet from the engine block itself. I'm going to probably remove that next, and then I'm just going to start pulling stuff off. If I come along anything, I'll slow down the speed time, and then I'll just kind of talk about what I'm pulling off. But the next little bit is going to go a little bit faster. Alright, the water outlet's being held down by a 15mm bolt. Not a whole lot of room, so you can't use a super thick socket on this. Holding on by some rubber gasket RTV, so a little tap should get it to let go. Remove this. so this is the thermostat. I'm going to switch this to a lower temperature thermostat. It's currently sitting on a 190. And I noticed that it doesn't really even open until after 200. I've got a 180 that I purchased, so it'll open up a little earlier. And then, so that's what I'm going to put in when I put the new one on. So I'm just going to set this to the side for now. Currently I'm removing, right now I'm going to remove the 2 hoses going to the heater core, just because they're kind of in the way. This one's actually attached to the intake manifold. We will have to remove this bolt that the hose connects into to put into the new intake manifold. I may buy a new one. I may try and salvage this one. We'll see what happens. I'm guessing it's going to be pretty gross, so I'll probably just end up buying a new one, and usually they're just a few dollars. Alright, sometimes these hoses kind of a pain to pull off. This one actually came off pretty easy. This one's giving me some difficulty. Don't be afraid to pull pretty hard on these to get it off. Takes a little extra elbow grease sometimes. So those are both the heater core hoses are off, and now I'll move on to the carburetor. So the carburetor itself, I'm guessing it was the one that came with this engine and intake manifold. I wasn't the one who installed it, so I'm not 100% sure, but they definitely had to do some modifications to try and make this thing work with the Jeep, including they've got the accelerator cable coming from the wrong side, which means there's nowhere to hook up the throttle valve cable going to the transmission. They also, looks like they cut some of their own metal and kind of did their own thing. When I first got this engine, there was a lot more twine on it. I've removed most of it, but yeah, just gonna start pulling things off. I recently got a new spring for this. Anyway, I was gonna be switching over, and I needed one anyways for a project I was doing on the Camaro. So I pulled the one off of this one and replaced it on the Camaro, and then I bought this. Pretty inexpensive from O'Reilly's. Just a little 4-pack of springs. Alright, this carburetor's got 4 nuts, 1 here, and then 2 on the other sides. I'm going to remove those now before removing anything else on this. So, and they are 1/2 inch. And then I'll come back once I've got the carburetor removed. I don't have the carburetor off quite yet. I want to remove the fuel line first before I start taking the nuts off on this side. Yeah, so just a little bit of fuel came out. Not a big deal. And screw head wasn't big enough anyways. So I'll just set this to the side. So I got the carburetor bolts all out, and then I noticed there's this little guy right down here. It looks like almost some sort of kind of tensioner. Honestly, I don't know what that is. I've never seen one before, but since I'm not reusing this carburetor, I'm going to just pull it off. It looks like it's attached to the vacuum, but yeah, I honestly don't know what it's for. So. But again, I'm not putting it back on, so I'm just going to remove it with the carburetor. And the screw that's holding this down is completely stripped, so I'm just going to pull the carburetor apart to remove this piece. And then just attach it from the carburetor. that last hose, and voila, our carburetor's out. Alright, we're getting pretty close to having everything off of the intake manifold. I'd mentioned early in my other video about needing an adapter to make the 4-barrel fit on this intake manifold. There's no adapter in the world that would make it fit on this intake manifold. So yeah, I definitely needed the new intake manifold in order to make the new carburetor work. So big things I still have to remove. I need to pull this guy off. I need to get this out of the way, remove these vacuums, get them out of the way. The biggest thing really left to remove is the distributor. The whole thing needs to come out. There's definitely some things you want to do before you remove your distributor. Diagram where each one of your cables is going. You should have a firing order written somewhere on your block, but even with that, I still like to just double check to make sure that that's actually what's set up. You never know, you might have gotten your hands on one that's been upgraded and maybe they're using a different firing pattern based on how it's hooked up, so it might hook up in a different spot. One might start in a different spot. The firing order of the engine itself will never change, but the spot where your number 1 starts may shift based on your distributor cap. So just before you remove any cables, go ahead and mark down where each one's going and in what order, so when you're going to put it back on, you know exactly where they're all going. And then the next big thing, and I'll talk to it as I'm removing it, make sure you mark your distributor in several spots so you know where it was facing the front, what direction it was going. So when you put it back in, you put it right back in the exact same spot that you had it. Make sure you don't turn the engine block at all, because as that turns, it's going to turn where the distributor is advanced to. And then so you'll have to figure out where your top and bottom is, and it's just a lot of work. I've done it before where I didn't mark anything in the right spot, and so it was a huge headache trying to figure out where everything went, and I had to basically do a lot more work because of it. So before I take this off, I'm gonna figure out where all my plugs are going and where my 1 starts basically. And then as I pull the different parts of the distributor off, I'm going to mark the direction that they are, and then I'm going to tape things in place so nothing moves. So when I'm going to put it back together later, I'm not running into a bunch of issues with that. So when you see me next, I'll have the distributor cap off. So I've got the distributor cap off now. This is the part that I've screwed up on multiple times of removing the distributor. So the most important thing is to get the direction that this guy's going. Because when you put it back on, you want to put it back in the exact same spot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm just going to tape it down right here. And when I pull the whole thing off, I'm going to tape it down. I've already diagrammed what direction it's facing so I don't forget later when I go to put it back on. So I'm going to tape this back to this piece right here so it can't move. You don't want to let it move around either while it's off, because it is a pain in the butt to try and figure out where the top center is when you're redoing it later. So get yourself some tape, marker, something, just so you won't forget what direction that guy is facing when you put it back on. So I'm going to go just like this. Like I said, I've already diagrammed that it's facing towards the back, and I'm just going to tape it in place so it can't go anywhere. And then I'm going to pull it out. The last bolt I got to do is this one right here, and then I'll just get that one bolt out. As I'm pulling it out, I'll let you know what size it is, and then we'll get this guy out. Alright, so this last bolt that's holding it in place, it is a 3/8. I'm going to save this bracket and bolts for the new intake manifold. So when I taped it up so it shouldn't move. Should stay in place. Got that little bracket out of the way. So this guy is attached to the oil pump. So as the oil pump spins, this spins. Everything inside this thing spins. This guy spins. So as it comes out, this is an oil seal location. So make sure you get a seal back in, a gasket back in when you do put this back in, and then also have a couple paper towels ready when you go to pull this out. And again, make sure you get the direction. Make sure you know exactly how you're going to put it in. I've already drawn a diagram showing that it's pointing towards the firewall right now, with the vacuum pointing that way. So that way when I pull it out and I go to put it back in later, I'll know exactly what direction it needs to go in. Again, it's a super pain in the butt. It is going to twist just a little as you pull it out, and it'll go right back. So now, set a little bit of oil on it, and then this guy right here does sit inside the oil pump. Now I don't want anything to move, so I'm just going to go put it down where it won't be touched. I've got just a few more things to remove from this before I can actually take the full intake manifold off. I've got this vacuum port going into the intake manifold. You'll keep all of these. I've got one other vacuum line that hooked in here. I just pulled it off. This will unhook, and then I'll have to use a crescent wrench or a wrench to get this guy off. But I need to save this because it is going to go into the new intake manifold. So don't damage that. And that's part of the vacuum system. All right, just real quick. This guy's a 3/4. I just put it on here and then give it a little tap with my rubber mallet, and that got it off. I know removing some things sometimes can be scary, especially if they don't want to move. And then this is just a little pipe fitting, and remove this guy, and then the whole thing will come off. So it just spins in place around the pipe. And it's off. And you can just leave this attached. That way you don't forget about it later. Alright, this little guy right here, same thing, 3/8 or 3/4. I just gave it a few taps with the rubber mallet, and that got it loose. And it's come out pretty easy. So again, I'm going to reuse these, so you don't want to lose these parts. If you want to buy new ones, that's fine, but I'm definitely going to reuse all the parts for the most part that I'm pulling off. Alright, so this guy is a bit of a pain in the butt. I'm using an old trick my friend showed me one time. You take a wrench and you wrap it around it. So I've got pressure that I'm pushing this way, it's helping me pull, and then I'm using my other hand to pull on this guy, and it gives me a little bit of extra leverage. Unfortunately, normally I take a pipe and add it onto the end of here, which gives me more leverage. And if that doesn't work, I can add more into that pipe. But this ended up working. I've gotten it loose enough now. I should be able to take it off the rest of the way. But these are a pain in the butt. If you end up stripping them, they're really not that expensive. Maybe $5-6 from your local auto parts store. Just get a new one. Looks like I'm able to salvage this one, so that's cool. Save a little money. If you look down here, when I replaced the water pump not that long ago, I had to buy a new one. I was supposed to salvage the old one. It didn't want to come out, so I bought a new one. Like I said, not that much, and then you just swap it out. I may end up just taking this in and getting a new one anyways, just because it's pretty rusty, and it'll help with making it last longer. Pretty much everything is off. There should be, I think, 12 bolts left in here. So I'm going to remove all 12 bolts. I think almost all of them I should be able to get in with my socket set. I've got a earthquake pneumatic gun, so these should come off pretty quick. want to say thanks, Mom and Dad, for this present. Alright, that's all the bolts. So this guy is sitting on a gasket, and so there's going to be a lot of crud all the way around this thing when I pull it off. I actually replaced this gasket when I got this 2 years ago because there was a lot of leaks on this Jeep when I bought it. Part of the reason I got such a good deal on it, the owner was just kind of tired of constantly fixing it, so he sold it to me at a discount. So when I pull this off, it actually should be a fairly fresh gasket. Hopefully it's remained fairly clean. Before I pull it off though, I'm going to probably vacuum this all out just to make sure that less junk makes it down in. And then once I pull this thing off, I'll show you what it looks like inside. And then I'll throw some newspaper in it and over it to make sure that it doesn't get dirty inside. So in just a second I'll be back and I'll start pulling this guy off. Alright, so I took the shop vac to it real quick just to get a little of the extra debris off. To get this thing off, it shouldn't take too much. So I usually start in the front corner and just kind of pry a little. It does look like it's starting to move a little bit. And then as I get that pried up, try and get a little more screwdriver in there. Alright, I can hear it lifting, slowly coming up. Just want to work your way in. Eventually you should be able to get the screwdriver in a lot. And then once that happens, you can break the seal. Alright, so the seal's broke. I should be able to lift this guy off now. Yeah. Alright. So make sure you have a place ready for it to go when you take it off. Lift it. There we go. Alright. Shouldn't be much oil on that piece. A little bit of water because you got the water ports on the front. Inside here you can see your rods. Now would be a good time to look at them, see if they're bent or anything. Mine look pretty good, so I'm not going to worry about replacing them. And then just make sure at this point you want to fill this in with any kind of newspaper or magazine. If you got a magazine sitting around you never read, just place it in here and just fill it as much as you can, because what you want to avoid is any kind of dirt or grime getting into your engine block, because that's going to ruin things later. It's going to muddy up your oil, and then you'll run into problems later. And then before you want to start pulling off all of the gasket, make sure this thing is covered nice and tight. You really don't want to mess it up. So when I come back, I'm going to go ahead and have this thing full of magazine. Basically what I did is I started out by crumpling up little balls of newspaper. In this case I was using magazine. Crumpled up little balls of magazine, and then I just did a bunch, as much as I could, to fill this thing, and then I did a big layer on the top here. And what that's going to do is as I pull things off of here and dirt comes flying out, you don't want that dirt to get on your block. So the best thing is to have these here to catch all this dirt. So see how all that dirt just landed in there. So the next really big step before we can start the install of the new stuff is we got to clean all of this off and then get all the dirt out of there and clean off these edges as much as possible, so when we put the new seal on, it's nice and tight. And this came off really easy because I just put this on less than a year ago. It should come off pretty easy. So when we come back in the next video, this is all going to be cleaned off, and I'm going to have it ready to go for the new intake manifold. The big thing here when you're cleaning this off is make sure you're getting all the dirt off. It's best to go over everything with a razor blade at the end to make sure it's nice and flat. I don't recommend you use any kind of sanding tools. It could end up getting stuff in places you don't want it to go. I did just notice that there's a little bit of water coming out right here, so I want to stop that from getting in with the oil, so I'm going to go grab a paper towel, just shove it in there, and pull as much of that water out as possible. You can't reuse the seals or the gaskets, so don't try and reuse them, just throw them away and buy new gaskets. They're really cheap, so you should try and save them. So again, big things that you want to do when you're cleaning this: make sure you get all the dirt, all the previous gasket, clean this off really nice, and then once it's really clean, then you can think about putting the new gasket on, and we'll talk more to that in the next video. So this concludes this video. In the next video we'll actually install the new stuff, and if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more of my videos, you want to see the rest of this, hit the subscribe and then hit the little bell so you can see the new videos as they come up. And then we'll get the new intake manifold in and the carburetor in over the next video. Thanks guys, and have a great day. Bye.